The continuous presence of the Handmaid's Tale in both politics and popular media is quite perplexing. On one hand, it's often used as an analog to protest perceived misogynistic laws and policies, as well as making claims it represents the end result of a society that makes it well known that most people oppose the idea of killing children. And on the other hand, it's a typical safe, edgy feminist victim narrative mixed with a splice of unaware commentary and all the subtlety of a second plane hitting a tower. All while the author is held up as a faux intellectual who's never found a current thing she wasn't willing to support, and who is more concerned with writing a story about how men are trash, but has her main character throw herself at the first guy who gives her goo-goo eyes, who isn't a figure of authority. The author, Margaret Atwood, claims that the Republic of Gilead and its creation in the story was what she saw as a totally possible near future that didn't require any new movement or incident to set into motion. Which is weird because Gilead is a theonomic military state where the Old Testament is basically treated as the Christian variant of Sharia or Talmudic law, which anyone who has even slightly versed in Christian theology can tell you is not what Christians believe. In fact, the only sect that practiced such a belief was the Puritans, which the Sons of Jacob, who are the founding group of Gilead, are explicitly based on. Even more strange, during the 1980s at the time the story was written, Puritans and any offshoot sect of them was just non-existent in America. Even other offshoot movements advocating for theonomy, led by the likes of R.J. Rushdoony, Gary North, and Greg Bashan, were not even 0.1% of the American population. And even with the small population that supported it, as far as I can find, there was literally no town, city, state, or even county that practiced theonomy for reasons including, but not limited to, the fact that it would be illegal in America as it violates the First Amendment. So already, in order to make her realistic dystopian near-future story, Margaret Atwood had to violate her own expressed rules for the story and literally just make up a social movement which just so happened to be based around the only religion that the 80s leftist intellectuals had collectively decided was okay to demonize, using a theoretical, legal, and moral framework that completely ignores the teachings of said religion, and a form of governance that, as far as I can tell, has basically never actually been put into practice. Atwood also claimed that the story was partially inspired by the Iranian Revolution of '79 and supposedly the regime that followed afterwards, which is strange because if you know anything about the revolution, you'd know not only was it a Soviet-backed revolution, but it was carried out in no small part by communist insurgents who believe the exact sort of things that Margaret Atwood believes, who then were turned on by the Muslims once they secured total control over the country. Not only that, but Islam has been known to famously not agree with or even believe a lot of the many things that Christianity believes. And the story itself is nothing to really write home about. The world of The Handmaid's Tale is just all over the place, downright schizophrenic at times. Despite supposedly men having all the authority and power, it seems that most of the people actively enforcing the social norms, especially against people like Offred, are just the women. Be it the various classes of the wives or the aunts throughout the story, aside from the ritualistic rape and state violence that gets enforced by, say, the military police, the actual shaming and physical punishment is carried out by the women. The aunts beat the handmaids. They organize the Maoist struggle sessions to shame them if someone loses an eye or a finger or whatever it may be. Carried out almost exclusively by the women. With a word, the women can have the girls turned into handmaids or ostracized by the other women, usually in the form of whatever Maoist struggle session they're doing at the time, which always devolves into this sort of high school representation of how people view things, where they just call someone a whore or a slut, and that's the end of it all. The wives can beat and torment the women as they see fit, basically torturing them whenever they want, for whatever reason they want. And even the two male leads, being the commander and his driver, even talk about how they don't like the system. So it seems the only people involved in this that either actively participate in such a way that shows that they are willing to cooperate with the social norms are the women. Like the commander, for example, sure, there's the whole ritualistic rape thing. You know, the most blunt instrument you can use to show that this is a dystopian future is literally just having a woman get systematically raped by someone, because I guess any other sort of dystopian, high-minded, oppressive world was just too much work to think of. The commander even goes out of his way to say, in contrast to the, ritualistic rape, that he once offered to at least like him a little bit, so much so that he takes her to an illegal party and gets her contraband things that are banned by the government. It's largely just this form of the longhouse where the women around, especially the older women who are in charge, just decide that whatever value they have is determined on how much of a good mood they're in. If they don't like you, they kick you out. You get punished for whatever reason. It very much plays like how you see women treat each other when one clearly doesn't like the other, because they see them either as a threat to their position, or they're just getting so popular that there's a risk that they'll be liked more than the individual wants them to be. The story tries to justify Gilead's use of the ritualistic rape by referencing a part of Genesis where a woman is envious of her sister because her sister has children while she herself is sterile and wants to be a mother, so she asks her husband to impregnate a servant so they may raise the resulting child as their own. So, even in the lore, the one thing that started this whole state-approved rape was a woman being envious of her sister and wanting to be a mother, so bad that she'd raise another woman's child. The entire narrative reeks of this sort of post-war liberal framing that treats all of history as if there was no nuance to anything at all. Like, someone always has to be a victim in one way or another, and there is no sense of agency present except by whatever liberal figure or group acts against the established antagonist. There's never any underlying belief behind anything other than we're just evil to be evil. Even when the commander says that he doesn't like some of the things that happened with Gilead, and he doesn't think they've fulfilled the promises that were made in the initial creation of the group, he goes on this tangent basically saying like, oh, well, we oppose this thing, which was all, liberal talking points, oh, slippery slope fallacy, the gays, blacks, what the fuck ever. Pick a fucking hot button issue, and you'll find it here. Like, he says like, oh, I don't particularly like this thing, but I would never undo it because whatever reason. And the only male character that isn't portrayed as universally bad is just the archetypal mysterious bad boy quiet type who Offred, the main character, can just cry to. We never find out if he's actually working for the resistance. We never find out if he's a member of the secret police or whatever it is. It's like the most ambiguous and mysterious part of it, to the point where you're just thinking, why put this in if you're not going to make like an ending to this story? It feels as if basically, she wanted to say that, oh yeah, everything is still terrible and she never got out, but I don't want to actually write that because I want people to have just enough freedom to say like, oh no, things got better, they defeated the evil bad guys. All of this after beating you over the head for the entirety of the story with how evil men are and how evil Christianity is for somehow being a part of this. After all that, she just can't help herself but add this ambiguous sort of ending, which is a sort of strange bout of subtlety in a story about a patriarchal state that has mandated rape, written by a Canadian communist.
Going back and looking at some of the things that Hitler...
Shut up, silly woman!
Oh man, this guy's so handsome and cool. I want to subscribe.